Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Rose Wright and I write and narrate Miraculous Ladybug fan fiction. Welcome to Mary Shot Madness. Thank you so much to Nema Diana for this amazingly beautiful commission. Her info will be linked below. Please enjoy Change Targets, Chapter 2, Catnap. Marinette unfastened her hair, shoving the ribbons into her purse. Her jet black hair cascaded down her shoulders, flowing slightly in the crisp spring breeze. She threw her head over the side of the metal bench, enjoying the feel of the sun hitting her skin. Even though it was morning, the sun was already hard at work and showed no signs of dulling. The world made music around her, from the children in the park laughing, the trees rustling and dancing in the wind, and someone snoring. Wait, snoring? Marinette shot up, thinking she may be hearing things. She surveyed her surroundings, spying an old woman feeding Mr. Ramier's pigeons, Nadia Shamak on an important business call, while her daughter Manon played hopscotch with a few other kids, but no one sleeping. Marinette stood slowly, legs stiff from lack of movement. She stretched out her body and began to walk through the park. The snoring grew louder as she approached a large tree. Marinette looked up, gigantic tree limbs blocking out the sun, providing shade with a gentle zephyr, causing some stray leaves to twirl around her feet. The perfect place for a nap. Marinette felt the weight of the day and would love nothing more than to prop herself under the tree and take a little nap. Marinette's sleepy eyes drifted up the trunk of the tree, finding the source of the snoring. In the tree, cradled by the branches, laid Cat Noir, fast asleep. Marinette couldn't help but snicker. He looked so peaceful, arms stretched out behind his head, legs crossed. Psst, she hissed. Cat! He didn't even stir. Cat! Marinette said a little louder, but his snoring also crescendoed. Cat Noir! His eyes flashed open, followed by, Whoa! Marinette didn't even have time to run before the superhero, flailing his arms desperately, crashed down onto her. Fancy meeting you here, huh? He laughed. Marinette wheezed out a sigh, struggling to breathe under his weight. Cat Noir was actually quite lean, but Marinette, being small herself and having next to no muscle, couldn't move underneath him. Can you, get off me, please? She paused to gulp some air. Oh yeah, sorry! He stumbled to his feet, helping Marinette to hers. She took several deep breaths before staggering backwards, falling onto a bench. I really am sorry, Marinette. Are you okay? Cat Noir said as he walked to her, sitting closely at her side. Fine. You startled me, that's all, she said after collecting herself. Why were you sleeping in the tree anyway? I'm homeless, he said as if this were just common news. What? She exclaimed. Homeless? Cat Noir? Why had he never told her? And if not her, why didn't he at least tell Ladybug? She panicked, feeling her blood pressure spike, concerned for his well-being. Knowing his joke wasn't as funny as he initially thought, he raised his hands as if trying not to spook an animal. Hey, sorry, I'm kidding, he apologized. Cat, she said in exasperation. I was worried about you. A cat like you can't roam on the streets. You might get sent to the pound, she said with a mocking smile. Now who's making bad jokes? They shared laughter before falling silent, observing the world around them. Lazy Saturdays were Marinette's favorite, and spending them with Cat made them even better. Typically, she spent this time watching TV, or thinking up her next fashion design. She tried to make a bit of time for herself as she worked hard through the week, being a superhero and everything. Sometimes being a hero intruded on her downtime, but so far it seemed like Hawkmoth also might be taking a day off. Cat Noir yawned, stretching an arm around Marinette, the oldest trick in the book. She smiled, leaning into him. So, you're not a stray? Cat chuckled. No, not quite. I actually live near here, but it's hard to get any decent sleep at my house. Marinette waited to see if he had more to say, but he stopped, a certain gloomy expression tied to his handsome features. "Oh?" Marinette prompted. He knew he probably shouldn't. They weren't supposed to know anything real about each other. But he was Marinette now, not Ladybug. Marinette pretended that made a difference. But deep down, he knew it didn't. Rules were meant to be broken, though, and right now Cat needed someone to talk to, even if Marinette couldn't understand what he was going through. He wanted him to know he cared. He breathed out deeply, slumping forward, elbows placed on his leather-wearing knees. "My father," he proceeded cautiously, "expects a lot from me. Too much sometimes. I have no freedom, but as Cat Noir, I can have that. I get to save the city with Ladybug. I can stay out late. I can look at the stars and not just from my bedroom window. It's nice not to have all of these forced responsibilities, if only for a few hours." Marinette was stunned. He only ever saw the carefree Cat, but inside was a boy who had been through so much. This explained his usual joking demeanor. Cat Noir was an escape. This time Marinette wrapped an arm around Cat Noir, pulling him into her. She held him for a while, not knowing how long they sat there just holding each other. She felt his heart beating against her. When they separated, Cat smiled at her in a way she only saw him look at Ladybug. "Thank you, Marinette. It's been a while since someone has been so nice to me." Marinette forced a smile, feeling guilty. As Ladybug, she had treated him horribly, and she couldn't help feeling guilty about this sudden desire she felt for Cat. She shifted uncomfortably, looking anywhere but at him. "Cat Noir, Her eyes widened, shooting up out of her seat. "I think we should duck!" Marinette grabbed Cat's shoulders, throwing him to the ground. She placed herself above him, sheltering his head as an overwhelming tail swung through the park, knocking over the bench they previously occupied. "What was that?" he questioned, sitting up. He narrowed his eyes, taking Marinette's wrists in his hands, noticing a slight bruise already forming on her forearm where she had fallen to the ground. "That was reckless, Marinette!" "I know, but Marinette interjected, only to be interrupted. "No buts!" he said, sweeping Marinette into a princess hold. "Let me protect you, not the other way around." Cat looked around desperately, searching for the monster that ruined their lazy day. "Cat, I have to..." She began to protest, only to be cut off again, this time by a menacing creature. It had the head of a lion with a wild mane, eyes screaming murder, a turtle-esque body, and the scaly tail of a dragon. Marinette had heard stories of this kind of being, all nothing but folklore. Yet here it stood, unleashing a mighty roar. A Tarrasque. Cat shielded himself and Marinette from the creature's wrath. Cat sprung them to a nearby building. He checked his cat phone, calling Ladybug, only to be greeted with her answering machine. "Ladybug, where are you? We've got a situation!" He had no missed calls and saw no sign of her. Marinette grit her teeth, looking over her shoulder, hoping to catch a glimpse of the oversized Tarrasque. "This isn't like her," Cat Noir muttered. "She's MIA, and I don't know that I can do this without her." Marinette would have felt flattered if this premise hadn't been so dire. "She'll be here, Cat." His eyes drifted, landing on the monster while it crashed through a building with the help of its hardened shell. He winced as another landmark fell. His eyes bounced between the ensuing chaos and Marinette, torn, not knowing what to do. "Go," Marinette urged. "I'll be okay." "But I promised I'd protect you," he said, the desperation rising in his voice. Marinette simply smiled, placing her hands on Cat's tense shoulders. "You're protecting me by protecting Paris. Go, Cat. I promise I'll stay right here." He pressed his forehead to hers, reluctant to leave. Marinette stood on her tiptoes, pressing her lips to his cheek, his face flooding with color. "Now go." He nodded with determination, bounding from the roof. Tiki flew out of Marinette's bag, striking a tiny heroic pose. So much for our day off. Are you ready, Marinette? I've been ready. Tiki, Marinette cried. Spots on! The familiar light of transformation surrounded her. Adrenaline built in her body, a knot forming in her stomach. And she scanned the rubble that the Tarrasque had created. Cat Noir jumped through the sky, leading the monster away from her. With a quick zip of her yo-yo, Ladybug found herself next to her partner, the creature swiftly approaching. Cat's eyes lit up upon seeing her. Nice of you to drop in, Bugaboo, he said, chuckling at his own pun. Ladybug involuntarily rolled her eyes. Sorry, it took me a while. I got held up with something, Ladybug said hesitantly. No worries, LB. I'm just glad you're here now. The two walked backwards as the creature approached, staggering from side to side, destroying everything in its path. So what have you learned about this thing? Ladybug asked, creating a fence with her yo-yo string, attempting to hold it off. Other than it has a thirst for destruction, not much. It does seem to have a particular distaste for the landmarks, though, Cat said. It already destroyed the Eiffel Tower, Notre Dame. I think it's heading for the Louvre next. Ladybug looked back at the monster as it gnashed its sword-like teeth against the magical barrier. Now was as good a time as any to use her power. She currently saw no solutions, but maybe this would clear things up. Lucky charm! Ladybug bellowed as not one, but two items fell from the sky. Something resembling a cross as well as a bucket. Okay. This definitely didn't add any clarity. Ladybug racked her brain, seeing no solutions. Well, Cat said with hope, anything? Are we feeling lucky? The opposite, Cat. I don't see anything. I've got a cross and a bucket. What am I going to do with that? At that moment, the Tarrasque broke through its holding cell, angrier than ever. Cat made a few swift jabs with the staff in a fencing movement, trying to ward off the lion turtle dragon monster. Wait, Cat! I think I've got it! You think so? Can you spit it out before I'm lunch? He struggled as the creature grabbed the end of his staff, slinging Cat around like a rag doll. The raucous Tarrasque created such a disturbance, having too much fun swinging Cat Noir. Its tail unfurled, completely reaching far into the distance, crushing several buildings, including the one where Cat left Marinette. Marinette, no! Cat wrestled against the force of the tail crushing him. Cat, she's okay! Ladybug reassured him. She couldn't explain how she knew Marinette was safe, but he would have to trust her. His eyes met hers, raw with tears. No, I told her to wait for me. She said she'd stay. She said... His voice shook as he tried to free himself. Ladybug swung up to the tail, pushing against it with her legs, grabbing Cat Noir. He slipped from the monster's grip, to which it gave a ferocious yowl. Cat stared in the direction of the smashed buildings where Marinette had been. Cat, there's no time. Everything will be fine, Ladybug remarked. But we need to go. Ladybug yanked Cat Noir in the direction of the Seine River, the Tarrasque following close behind. Cat Noir, clearly out of it, said, Why are we here? Make a windmill with your staff. Cat did as he was asked, moving his weapon slowly in a circle. Great! Faster! And faster! Faster! Okay, keep that up! The staff whirled at such a velocity it created a loud buzzing sound, blowing their hair around their faces. The monster approached them, leaving a trail of debris. It opened its mouth as if to finally feast on the heroes, but Ladybug had other plans. She dipped her arm into the river, grabbing buckets of water, pouring it over Cat's staff. The water sprinkled into its face, subduing it for a moment, leaving Ladybug an opening. The water stopped briefly so Ladybug could thrust the spotted cross in the creature's face. The Tarrasque, as if in a trance, sat down, head cocked playfully, looking like an innocent house cat. Ladybug stayed steady, holding the cross out. While the monster was in this relaxed state, Ladybug commanded, "Cat, the bracelet! Front paw!" Cat Noir snapped into action, springing forward. "On it! Cataclysm!" The hero touched the bracelet with only a finger and it crumpled into 1,000,000 dust particles. The Tarrasque vanished, replaced by a middle-aged woman dressed in a pantsuit. Ladybug put her arms down slowly after the creature had completely vanished. She slung her yo-yo in a large circle, capturing the poisonous butterfly and purifying it as she had done hundreds of times before. "Are you okay, ma'am?" The superhero duo ran to the woman, helping her to her feet as she looked around in confusion. "Ladybug? Cat Noir?" Her gaze drifted between the two sets of concerned eyes. "What happened?" "We were hoping you might could tell us." Ladybug smiled kindly. "I remember getting angry about other artists' paintings getting more credit and my work not getting more notoriety. I'm a hack, not as good." She adjusted her burgundy blazer, dusting it off with her hands. "I painted this beautifully dynamic painting of a Tarrasque, my favorite French folklore beast, and the manager of the Louvre told me it lacked depth and creativity." The creases in her forehead deepened as a frown settled on her face. Ladybug reached out to grab her hand. "I see. Well, hey, don't think like that, ma'am. Everyone's journey is unique. It doesn't mean your art isn't any good. You can't compare art because everyone's idea of beauty is so different." Cat smiled and nodded in response. The woman patted the superheroine on the back. "You're right, dear. Thank you. And sorry again for the inconvenience." "Not at all. All in a day's work for the Bug and Cat team," Cat Noir said proudly, winking at Ladybug. The artist bowed deeply, showing her gratitude, walking away amongst the wreckage she had caused. "Wow, Ladybug, you never cease to impress. How did you figure all of that out?" Cat Noir said as his partner gathered the bucket and the cross from the ground. "I took a French history class a while back and we studied folklore and legends, things like that. Tarrasque was one of the ancient monsters we studied." She started, excited by the vast history of the fierce beast. "Legend says that St. Martha calmed a Tarrasque with holy water and held a cross to make it submissive." "I guess we owe this victory to your ability to pay attention in class, huh?" He laughed. "Are you going to do the honors?" He gestured to the spotted tools Ladybug cradled in her arms. "Right!" She propelled her lucky charm into the air, shouting, "Miraculous Ladybug!" The magical Ladybug swept the streets, returning the buildings upright, leaving the streets pristine, all remnants of the previous battle long gone. "Thank you, Ladybug. I have to go. Marinette is waiting for me." He hugged his partner tightly before bounding off into the sky. Ladybug stood around smiling like an idiot before abruptly coming to. She shook her head vigorously, pigtails flailing against the sides of her face. Shoot. Cat would be looking for her, or for Marinette. She zipped off in a different direction, hoping to beat him to the rooftop. "Marinette? Marinette!" A frantic Cat Noir hopped to the roof, searching for Marinette. But he was alone. His heart beat against his suit, thumping harder and harder as each second passed. "Cat?" The small voice came from behind him as she stuck out her head from behind a chimney. He dashed to her, grabbing her in a bear hug. "Marinette, I was so worried! Are you okay? You're not hurt, are you?" He thoroughly checked her face and her arms for any sign of harm. "Relax, you big scaredy cat, I'm fine." She took his hands to quiet his anxiety. But instead he took her face in both hands, kissing her passionately. Marinette, initially shocked, closed her eyes, melting into his embrace. After a few sweet moments, he jerked back, touching his lips. Marinette couldn't keep her face from falling in disappointment. "Sorry," Cat muttered. I just got so caught up and I'm so glad you're safe and He trailed off. Don't apologize, Marinette said, pulling him back in for yet another kiss, embracing the other tightly. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to subscribe for more fan fiction. And as always, stay miraculous!